I'm seeing a black screen. Indeed, indeed, I'm seeing a black screen. And there we go. Okay, folks. Welcome, everybody, to the Inworld review, part of the Metaverse Week in Review. And today is, what is today? It's the 14th of April, 2013, lest I drift back into the previous century, which has been known to happen. This is, blame it on steampunk, if you will. Okay, I'm Mal Burns. I'm in London. We'll be joined shortly by my guests, and my partner Tara Yates is in the Pacific Northwest. First off, just a quick roundup of what's sort of interesting and new in the general metaverse this week. Oddly enough, I have two clips, same week, both of them from the New Scientist. I say clips, I mean web pages. One on the 5th of April, describing virtual reality creating an infinite maze in a single room. The idea being that in future we'll be just beaming into rooms and we'll be getting an endless maze on our TV screens and such like. I think most of us would actually call this virtual worlds, but it's very interesting. They're talking about hardware VR systems coming down in price and things like that. Also, more recently, this week, 11th of April, in the same place, the New Scientist, a blog called Virtual Traveler, Beam a Live 3D into the world. And here we go again. It's a different piece on slightly different subject, but the idea is talking about virtual reality headsets and stuff like that. It is curious that this comes at a time where the Leap device is imminent, and we're reading a lot of reviews on the Oculus VR kind of headset. And its possibilities with platforms like Second Life. And there has been one blog, it may have been Hamlet Orr, urging Linden Labs to sort of keep up with this because it's assessed as a input device for Second Life and other things. It's really depending a lot on the viewer capabilities of adopting the drivers, etc., etc. The Leap drivers, as we already know, are actually available from Linden Lab. Now, also, just scanning the main blogs, as it were. Very interesting article this week from Maria Koroloff, a self-posted article at Hypergrid Business, asking, can 3D save the PC industry? This I actually found rather interesting because something else I noted in the week is that figures for the sales of PCs over the recent months have actually shown a huge decline in favor of things like tablets, etc. And the most damning thing of all, quite probably, is that the PC, the desktop PC industry, was apparently relying on Windows 8 to revive it. And guess what? It hasn't happened. Nobody wants a PC anymore, presumably, especially if it has Windows 8 on it. Anyway, Maria's article raises some kind of important points about, do we need different operating systems, and should we be able to, as PCs are going to have to change, should we be booting up into a virtual space as our starting point? And finally, I have one other. That was a Hypergrid Business, by the way. And finally, a great blog, Gwyneth Llewellyn. .net. Gwyneth, as we all know, comes up with some very long, very interesting blogs, and she had a very unusual take on things this week because the title of her blog is Setting the Pace of Development to Very Fast. And her contention is that Linden Labs, far from just bringing out little iPad games and things like that, do seem to actually be accelerating Second Life's development. Where I know a lot of people trot around Inworld here and say, Linden Labs are on the downhill road and they can't keep up and they don't know what they're doing. But her argument is actually that many features are being brought in that actually indicate very rapid development on the part of Linden Labs. Speaking for myself, I spent a good deal of time in OpenSim myself this week. I was rather astonished early in the week to log my main hypergrid avatar into Jacadia.com and finding that I couldn't teleport out to other grids. In other words, the hypergrid seemed to be turned off. So I logged myself into another avatar on OS Grid, and the hypergrid is working fine. For those of you watching this show live as part of Metaverse Week in Review, you'll see some of our intro clips. Amongst those, I did do a little clip myself of the build for the forthcoming Confession Avacon. And we'll no doubt have more about that on recent weeks. But the Avacon Conference Centre is already built, and it's on the sim at the edge of Fleetgrid, which is, of course, out on the open sims. You can get to that by fleetgrid.com:8002. At least that's the hypergrid jump if you need it. Right. What else did I do on OpenSim? Well, we hopped about shopping and hunting for things for exciting new build that will be in the works very, very imminently. So it's a matter of practicing our hypergridding skills, really. As I said on the live show Week in Review, if you've been watching, we did show a couple of trailers. We have one of Philip Rosedale demonstrating what he's calling a transmitter, which is one of the aspects of this new 3D immersion high-speed stuff that he's working on, which in fact featured in our conversation here last week. We had another clip of interesting, it's actually a game called Code Spells, and it's a sort of virtual world type setup where the idea is students can actually go in and learn Java. Using the virtual world. In other words, you do things in this virtual world creatively that help you write the Java code that will actually do it. And we don't really cover games here, but that was a particular educational use, I think. A good example of the way a gaming immersive platform can be used for education. What else did we have? We had a few things. A little trailer for Nighthawks, the gallery, of course, that wonderful stuff. A little clip about the April Fool's House, which again was something we mentioned a couple of weeks ago here. I also showed two clips. One of my own of Never River, which I finally got round to overdubbing in a rather haphazard way for your delectation. But more to the point, I showed a fairly old clip now called Year in the Life of Second Life, which was done by Pooky Media. And we're going to be, one of the guests coming up in a few minutes is going to be Pooky Amsterdam. So I thought we'd sort of get that in, and we'll be talking other things with her as well. And finally, we had a very short preview clip just come up from Dratster de Prey of the Fantasy Fair. We'll be talking much more about that too as this show progresses. However, I think that's it for my top of the bill sort of natter, so to speak, and it's time now to turn to my left-hand side where Tara Yates is waiting with her news roundup of the week. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Mel. Good to be here. And greetings, yes, from the Pacific Northwest, and a special shout-out to Zinnia Zauber in the audience, who happens to be a relative RL neighbor. In the rural scheme of things, an hour or two travel time, especially if it does not mean driving into the big city, is considered a neighbor. So anyway, glad to have you with us today, Zinnia, as well as I know there's some other folks out there who in the audience that we haven't seen before, so welcome aboard. And you will notice sitting around here in front of me and next to me some new critters, and these are the Troubles. Troubles, which currently Linden Lab is giving away to U.S. residents only who have Amazon accounts, and go follow the link from the Linden Lab blog into Amazon, or presumably you can go into Amazon Game Connect as well and find them there. They're sort of cute. They are free until April 25th. And as I say, you do need to have, it's available only to users of the free Amazon Game Connect service, which is currently limited to U.S. customers. Now there's a mama and a daddy and two kids. The mama and daddy who are sitting on the ground in front of us. Mama greets and daddy plays cop. That means you can set daddy up so that he will guard your door and will only let people in your door or who are on the list of friends that you've put in him to allow inside your door. And I don't know what exactly he does because I haven't set him up to do that, but Mama does a pretty nice job of greeting people. I don't know how often she greets the same person if they move within 2 meters of her and then move away and then move back in again, but that's another matter. The kids are designed to be held, but as I've discovered with kitty cats and other critters, with the animations in this chair, the holding a pet does some very bizarre things with the animations. So I park them on the seat, and there's a girl and a boy. And you can change their hats, and they have necklaces you can take on and off, and they're pretty cute. Now the thing that's kind of interesting, there are a couple things that are kind of interesting about these. I thought now they're supposedly going to be on sale after April 25th for only $9.95. Now, that translates as 2,500 lindens, which strikes me as just a little steep, given the price for various other critters that I've seen and are in my collection. But what really gets interesting is when you're in there, you will notice that there are various other things that have the first item that Linden Lab ever offered was one of their vehicles as a freebie, and it naturally within about 10 minutes of the blog post, people figured out how to game the system and get multiples, and they had it offline, and they took it offline rather abruptly, and there was lots of chuckling that went on, but the various vehicles are currently available for various prices. And you look through these, and there's a premium vehicle pack, which has a hoverboard, the sailboat, and the dune buggy, all three, with a price tag of $24.95 US, which translates as 6,175 lindens. But when you look at the fine print, you also get 4,000 lindens along with the three items, which means the net price, once you subtract the 4,000 lindens, is only $21.75 lindens for the three vehicles. There's a deluxe pack which only has two of the three, which only gives you 2,000 lindens and comes in at $17.05 for the two vehicles. Or you can buy only one vehicle, the hoverboard, all by itself for only $12.95, but that translates as approximately 3,200 lindens, which is, and no rebate. You don't get any lindens back if you buy that one. So you got to not be doing your math if you if you only buy one, because you get a much better deal. Anyway, it's an interesting marketing test, I'm sure, that they've got going on. That's probably giving them some interesting results. And given that there's been some conjectures made in part in response to the issues of linden dollars being viewed by the U.S. Treasury or whoever it is as potentially as actual money, that Linden Lab might switch to using regular dollars instead of lindens, and one wonders about some kind of an interaction with Amazon. So who knows where this is all going? But it's kind of interesting to see how they've got this currently set up at Amazon. Let's see. Other Linden news I thought was real interesting this week is they have released a project viewer, what they're calling the Materials Project Viewer, which will allow supporting normal and specular maps. Specular maps. This is your new word for the week. And to give you probably the easiest way to understand this is if you use a specular map for a texture, like for clothing, you can end up with a garment that looks quite iridescent, and it's very cool. So it's something that has great potential, particularly in clothing and things that move. It is a project viewer, which means it's strictly alpha, so only not for the faint-hearted at all. and there's no promises made or anything as far as any kind of a target for getting it in the main viewer. But those of you who are into such things, it's a good time to play with things that you don't care if you mess them up. So that's the other caveat here: is don't try doing specular maps with something that is your only copy, just in case it doesn't work. So that's one to look into, particularly for designers. Out in the wider world, a couple things I ran across that were kind of interesting. A movie released this week, something called Disconnect, released in cinemas on Friday. I forget, the rollout was a couple days before that. The description I picked up was it's a sort of crash for social media in that it weaves several interconnected stories and hits on several hot-button technology topics: catfishing, online child porn, identity theft, spear phishing, social media addictions, and cyberbullying, to name a few. Now, there was a new term in this that I hadn't seen before, and that's catfishing, which comes from the movie Catfish, which I have seen. But what catfishing refers to is the phenomenon of internet predators that fabricate online identities and entire social circles to trick people into emotional romantic relationships over a long period of time. So that's what catfishing is. So there's your second term for the week. It sounds like a fairly interesting movie. So you can kind of watch for that. I haven't seen it, so I can't swear that it's actually worth seeing. But it's called Disconnect. Well worth it for those of us who spend a lot of time in the wired world. And speaking of the wired world, any of you who have WordPress installations, and I'm referring specifically to those with a freestanding who've installed free WordPress in their website, as distinct from using WordPress.com or WordPress.org, there apparently is a worst ever coordinated brute force attack underway. And the report was that hosting providers around the world are seeing a substantial increase in brute force attacks against WordPress and Joomla sites, with some hosts reporting as much as triple the volume of attacks as usual. Basically, these are attempts to break in and they're going after admin accounts. And one estimate was that they say it's being done by a sophisticated botnet that may be comprised of as many as 100,000 computers, which is pretty astonishing to think about. And this particular botnet has the power to test as many as 2 billion, that's a B, billion, passwords in an hour. So basically, to cut to the chase here is, if you have installed and are using WordPress on your own website, you best make sure that you've got a reasonably complicated admin password and not password and not admin. If you haven't changed it, go do so, because your WordPress could get hacked real easily, given the size of this particular attack. Boy, this was a busy week. But I've got a couple other items here, Mel, that I'm just going to hold back for now. But one I wanted to mention, because I think this gives you a nice segue to start introducing guests, was an item I picked up from an RFA's blog. In the LEA world, that's the Linen Endowment for the Arts. In 2012, Chick Aon set up a Machinima Open Studio project, commonly known as MOSP, among folks. And that project is still going and has been moved to LEA 7. And it has the new location it's been updated. Includes a revised ground level layout and a host of new features open for use by machinists and photographers. Wonderful resource and opportunities for filmmaking and photographer. She highly recommends that you pick up the information at the landing point to find out what all is there and to kind of get familiar with how it all is set up to work. But definitely sounds like a must visit for those who are in those worlds and want some place they can do some of their work. So on that note, I think I'll toss it back to you for now, and then I'll come back around and pick up these other items later.
Okay, wonderful, Tara. Are these Troubles going to be trouble, I ask? I like the guard dog thing, but every time I hop over to the part of the metaverse arpeggio called the metaverse crash site beneath the satellite, there is a dog. And every time I res, this thing comes chasing over the sim at me, yapping its head off. It's a scary little blighter, and I kind of wish it would just go away.
These guys... The mother and father, you can turn on follow. I don't know if they'll follow anybody because I had it turned on, and then I promptly did a sim crossing, and indeed it did not follow across a sim crossing.
Well, given that my normal avatar is a tiny little pussycat, this dog has also got a bit of height on me too. So it's a really sort of scary experience, to be honest. And it's programmed to really yap, like one of those irritating little dogs that just has a voice far too loud for its size. Anyway, I digress. Thanks for all that news. Can't wait to hear what the other things are. So it's about time I introduced all the wonderful guests. We got a packed, a set of 6 seats, not a sofa, but never mind. A packed house today, as it were. I'm going to go around in a bit of a reverse order today. First of all, we've got here a wonderful old friend of ours, Pooky Amsterdam. Hi, Pooky.
Hey, I'm still waiting for breedable accessories.
Yes, indeed.
Great idea.
Wouldn't that be great? An earring and a necklace, breed and give you a bracelet.
That would be cute. And of course, we're still waiting for our avatars to be able to breed, as it were. I'm not going there. Anyway, good to see you, Pooky. We'll be back with Pooky very shortly because I know you're limited on time, Pooky, and we'll be probably disappearing before all the conversation is completed. But we'll sort that out in a minute. Next to Pooky, it's a welcome back to Phelan Corrimal from Rockcliffe University, and of course from the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education conference. Hi, Phelan.
Hello, good evening.
Anything you like breeding around?
Other than cultures in the back of the fridge, I don't know.
But we're not going there. That's for sure.
No,
those are called science projects.
Those are called science projects. I think anything else beyond that would destroy the PG rating. So there we go.
Okay, well, flipping over to the other side here is welcome back to most articulate man, Zander Greene, who of course is involved with Relay for Life, but also he's one of the primary lights behind the Fantasy Fair, which we showed you just this clip of just before the show. So welcome, Zander.
Thank you, Mel. It's always good to be with you guys.
Okay, you got any comments on the breedables?
I have no comments on the breedables. I can't imagine how this conversation has anywhere to go but downhill. So that's certainly where I would send it. So no.
Imagine we had 2 critters, and every time a new critter was bred, it auto-donated funds to RFL. You'd be interested.
You now have my undivided attention. Yes,
I thought so. Okay, so we'll get working on that. Or I won't. I haven't a clue, but
we've got top people working on it.
Okay.
Troubles arrive with children, but are not breedable. However, you can make copies, but you can't give them away.
Right. So you can fill up a Zoom with them if you really.
Can you delete them?
Oh yes.
I don't know. I'm waiting for the lawsuit from Star Trek just because, somebody's going to come out with the trouble with Troubles at some point, and that'll be the end of it.
There has been a blog already this week. Actually, my favourite one, it's Troubles for Second Life, and everybody read it as his Troubles for Second Life, but never mind. Okay, and last but certainly not least, because she's always here, is welcome to our friend Saffia Widdershins. Hi, Saffia.
Hello, Mal.
And of course, I'm going to start with you, Saffia, with all the latest. And of course, we have Zander here to talk about Fantasy Fair 2, so we connect there. So I'll get all the news from you, then we'll head over to Pooky.
Well, I head over to Pooky now because I know she's got to get away, and I can chip in later.
Okay. Okay, you've messed up my segue. Okay.
I'm sorry, I spoiled it. But I know Pooky has to get away, and I don't.
Okay, fine. Well,
I was waiting for what Saffia was going to say. I always love to hear this amazing woman. I mean, talk about grid treasure, Saffia Widdershins for grid treasure.
Absolutely. The great thing, the great thing here, you see, is that we can all talk, have a conversation about the various topics that come up. Now I've got two of you saying, "You go first. Pooky, I will go first with you. Hopefully you'll be able to stay for a bit of the conversation.
There we go. All right. Thank you.
Hopefully you'll be able to stay for a bit of the conversation, but let's sort of tackle you first. Now, we also, when this the live positive show, the Inworld review finishes, we have a little exclusive for you, courtesy of Pooky, which we sort of prepared earlier. You've got a new machinima coming out, which we're going to see a little bit later. You've got yet another instalment of that wonderful machinima, The Time Travelers, and a lot else. You're also working with Dragster, I think, on various things. So maybe you'd like to bring us up to date on the adventures of Pooky Media. Let's call it that.
It is, and Pooky Media, can I talk about what we're working on now?
Yeah, sure.
All right, because it is the next episode of The Time Travelers. And I'm really excited about it. It is it's going to be about a 12-minute film, and we're bringing back, of course, all of the characters. Really, really exciting. We're getting some new and old sets. We're going to be back at In Silico, of course, for some of the Evil Lair darkness, and we're also going to be in some new places. It's just really exciting to have a series like this and to have seen it develop from what was first kind of a Scooby-Doo, hey, teens on a mission, to something that's become more and more relevant over time, which is AI, artificial intelligence, and everything from Google Glasses to teleportation. This is post-Higgs boson discovery physics, and it's always great to investigate the future in Second Life, because it's here that I think are the people who are really the next generation kind of science fiction inventors. What people were able to do, of course, in history from Kepler to Verne, etc. With words, we can do here with prims and Sculpies and mesh, and it's all very, very exciting. So that's the next film that we're doing, and a bunch of other projects. But that's really wonderful, and a chance to work with the great team again. Russell Boyd is director, and Rob, set manager. So that's what Pooky Media is up to right now.
Right. And we have this little piece later as well, which you did. I guess this is a local concern to you, isn't it? The mosquito thing?
Yes, this is another educational film, and it's wonderful how well Second Life, of course, adapts. I mean, do we adapt to it, or does it adapt to us? Do we create within it? Does it create us? I mean, it's of course all those things. But here we were able to put forward another film that's very descriptive and very, I think, compelling on some of the problems that are faced by mosquitoes and vector-borne diseases. Did you know you could get malaria in Central California?
Well, I do now.
Right, yeah.
Because I've watched it, but yes, I must admit, it's not the sort of thing you'd immediately think of. So I found that fascinating, and as of course there was the previous one as well.
What I find freaky is you can get malaria in Winnipeg.
Yes,
it's much wider spread than people realise.
You can get measles in Wales again. Sorry, a bit uncalled for that. Yeah, it's worrying, you know, the rise of lack of immunity again to some things. That, but you know, it's you know, the way you tell it in the machinima, I think, is really vital. You know, because it's you're addressing kids mainly, aren't you? You're just sort of telling them to watch out. For these things, you know, it's right on your doorstep. This isn't some, you know, plague in a foreign country, and very worthy.
It's great. There's a level of there's mixed reality and a level of seriousness in the film that makes you even as an adult, of course, sit up and pay attention. And what's so great about the use of this medium for children, and of course that's going to expand more and more as we move. You know, that's almost a given, is that they really relate to it. I mean, people really relate to the game engine look. People are so familiar with playing on these kind of platforms that it got a relatability factor that really hits home.
It was quite curious because, as you say, it's pardon me, mixed reality, and the sort of real life, I suppose, I'll call it documentary, real life footage in there mixed with the virtual. And there's one point, I think there's a shot of a mosquito which immediately morphs. Pardon me. It immediately morphs into a mosquito in World, and oddly enough, the mosquito in World almost looks more real than the one that's in the. And
yeah, I know.
I actually have a question for you, because I was asking, this is typical me, where the question I was asking myself as I was watching this was a purely technical question, and I was saying to myself, now, have they constructed that mosquito, or was it an avatar? Was it an avatar?
That's great, and it interesting how the reality as it shifts back and forth reinforces both platforms, the 3D and the 4D one.
Yeah. So, were you dressed in an appropriate costume there, or was it a build mosquito?
At one time or another, yes, I was in fact all of the mosquitoes.
Right, okay, so I have to be extra wary.
Not at the same time.
I have to be extra wary. I have to be extra wary around you in future.
You know, you really have to have a very grounded personality, Mal, don't you, to be in this business?
It's okay to be around Pooky, but beware if she bites you.
That's just what I was thinking.
Female mosquitoes bite. The male mosquitoes hang around the plants drinking nectar all day. Looking hot.
Just when you thought we had no common ground with them.
Okay, let's move this into a greater conversation. Now, something I know, Pooky, that you're always involved with us in is Relay for Life, and of course the big telethon that we do on the Relay for Life weekend. I'm sure you'll be with us again this year, so you've always supported that. What about Inworld events? We're going to be talking a bit here about the Fantasy Fair, which is, of course, a Relay for Life project that's coming up. Very well acclaimed, sort of this great event. You know, it's really out of this world. Are you involved in any of these things at the moment at all? Pooky?
I thought you were talking to Zander about Relay for Life.
Oh, I know. I was about to segue us in over there. I was just asking you if... okay, let's move to Saffia and Zander. The big thing of the week, especially as we got Zander here, Fantasy Fair. It's imminent, isn't it?
It is indeed, coming up on April 20th. And it'll be running for 9 days this year, April 20th through the 28th. And we're adding a sim this year, so we've been at 9 sims in the past. It's a 10 sim event this year. Got about a dozen of the most brilliant visionary designers and builders in Second Life who are, even as we speak, hustling to fill up 10 sims worth of just absolutely stunning environments. 140 plus merchants who are planning to be there and sell their wares, and of course lots of great events. Our Jalen Bale series, which is always so popular and so much fun, and all of it beginning for Relay for Life on April 20th.
Wonderful. It's actually astonishing. I mean, we talk about, we have featured a lot of arts on this program. So, LEA and University of Western Australia's arts and machinima things. And it's only a few weeks ago since we had, I forget which one again. Well, we had a fashion fair anyway.
Sure.
Which was, again, a Relay for Life fundraiser. But astonishingly, it was one of those things where to look at it, the creativity behind it, at first glance you weren't quite sure it was a fashion fair. There was one sim which was actually huge. All the bits were in this sculpted persona sort of thing, and that could almost have been a fantasy fair, because all my memories of fantasy fair are these very wild exotic builds. And very was it? I think it was Fantasy Fair last year where there was an avatar that was huge, that literally almost took over the whole Sims because they were so big. And it's a very otherworldly experience. And it's really what the Not Possible in Real Life is all about. They using the virtual world to create these wonders that really couldn't be created anywhere else.
Absolutely. These guys are just world-class world builders, and it's a wonderful thing when those who attend the event are actually part of the drama itself. So we have our dragon friends come around and our merf friends, and it really is a meeting crossroads of the virtual worlds, and very literally a crossroads of the physical world. We've got people coming into Fantasy Fair as contributors, creators, designers who are really spread out all over the world. So that's another great use of a virtual platform, our ability to come together independent of any questions of geography, and be able to relay with one another in defiance of time and space.
Exactly. So well put. Saffia, I think you were coming in there.
I was just going to say that there's an interesting crossover, that some of the designers who work for Fantasy Fair are also artists in their own right. I mean, one example is Marcus Inkpen and Shani Azali, who are creating one of the regions. Shani's won various art challenges at the University of Western Australia, and Marcus is a well-known artist, and he and Shani have exhibited at LEA before now, haven't they?
They sure have. That's right. And, when you see what these guys have done this year, if you have been to a fair in the past, and everybody always says, how in the world will we be able to top visually what we were able to do this year? And, every year I just kind of start grinning and smiling long about January when the word starts coming in of what these brilliant people are working on. And we start to get a little bit of a sense of what it's going to be. And we are just a couple of days before I think we're going to be ready to really start putting some teaser photos and things like that. It was wonderful to have Drax come in and do a little bit of filming the other night, just with hours after these designers had gotten on these Sims. And it's just, there's so many different needs that something this large has, and to have all these wonderful people with all their different astonishing skill sets come and bring those talents to bear on Relay for Life. It's long about now where I just get a big old smile on my face and it stays there.
And it is the perpetual challenge. I like that, So how can you beat last year? Well, you just smile and say, don't worry, bigger and better than ever before.
That's right. These guys have such a dedication to this particular cause, and I think all of us who are drawn to that kind of literature and those kinds of films and stories, there's an innate relationship between what Fantasy Fair is about and what Relay is about. Certainly one of the great recurring themes of fantasy literature is this idea that individually, we can do a lot more than we maybe think we're capable of. And then when we come together empowered as individuals and form a fellowship with one another, then there's really absolutely nothing we can't do. In fact, we can change the world. We can even save the world.
Well, what can I say to that? I was about to hit my F5 button to do an applause, but it doesn't work. It won't work on TV, so never mind. Very profound, absolutely. this is the season for big events. I mean, not only is the Fantasy Fair happening, but there will be we're well into the build-up now for the greater Relay for Life event. Immediately after Relay for Life's climax, by the way, the weekend after, of course, we have Virtual World's Best Practices in Education, don't we, Phelan?
We do.
I'll come back to that later because I'm going to stick to a sort of thread here briefly. But between that, before both of those two, of course, we have the Second Life 10th birthday celebrations in one form or another, and particularly the community celebration, which shortly after the show, I think we have another meeting about it. But basically, the Sims are now up, and everything is sort of really getting underway. So I think I'll hand over to Saffia for a bit more on that.
Yes, the Sims arrived this week, earlier than we were expecting, actually. They're now being prepared and got ready for when the applications are all in and processed, so that they'll be ready for people to come and build. The exciting date this week is tomorrow, the 15th of April. Applications for building plots are opening then, so people can start to go to the website, find the form they need and fill in, because as well as applications for builders, we're also taking applications for performers and people who want to volunteer to help, things like stage managers, greeters, hosts, security, all of this. All the applications will open tomorrow, and you could also register if you're interested in press and PR, and just let us know. And obviously the building is going to be so exciting. I think last year it was just wonderful. I think everyone who was there watching things be constructed and then the event itself will remember just what a thrilling time that was.
And we have more time to think about what we want to build this time around.
Yeah. Last time we were scrambling.
It was a little rushed, yeah.
The fact that we did the whole birthday in about 6 weeks from a standing start was just incredible. I mean, this time we have months. Whisper it in hushed voices. We have months to do this, but it's going to be wonderful, and I'm just so looking forward to seeing what people want to build. And the theme of looking forward, looking back, it's going to be exciting. I think, it's going to be a chance to revisit the really early days of Second Life, but also to think about what's going to happen with the future.
Indeed. A great future. I'll quickly come to Phelan, actually, because I seem to recall we actually filmed a session you did at the birthday build last year, Phelan. Is Rockcliffe going to be involved in birthday celebrations this year?
Well, hopefully. We'll have to find out, because, the application's open tomorrow.
Yep.
And so we've got one going to go in for Rockcliffe and one going to go in for VWBPE.
Oh, right. So promote them both. Yeah. Okay, and Pooky, are you going to be involved in the birthday?
I am going to go to the Second Life birthday, of course. I think it would be really fun to do something for that. And when I talked to Saffia about maybe setting up a show, it would be really fun to do kind of a Yamey or Namey about all kind of facts about Second Life.
Oh, yes.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah, that might be fun. So let's see if we can get that together and get some notables and quotables on a panel. And even because it's just strict Yamey or Namey, just maybe get about 4 people. I think it'd be really fun.
I should point out the one application I missed mentioning there was for the auditorium. So you will be able to apply to have a slot there, to give a talk, to film a TV show, to do a whole range of things. And I've seen the auditorium design, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Some of the hiccups we hit last year are really going to be ironed out this year, so it's going to be a great place to hold events. or perhaps without giving too much away, I should say it's going to be great places to hold events.
Yay!
What did you mean by that?
Intriguing.
Well, we're certainly hoping to
spoilers.
actually film as much of it as possible. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of talks and stuff scheduled. How many we'll be able to cover, I don't know, but we really try and do a bit of visual archiving, if nothing else. So masses of stuff going on
There's going
that
to
front.
be. We're keeping
10
our
years! Wow!
we're keeping our powder dry on some things we have planned. And we've got some surprises coming up, including the way we're going to have ceremonies this year. It's going to be rather different and rather fun, I think.
Okay, talking of little celebrations, and I do mean little here, because the Tinies of Raglandshire will shortly be starting their art walk season, and the call has gone out for artists who might want to contribute to that. I think it's, I've actually can't see the date on my list here. I think it's
I've got the particulars. The actual art walk dates are May 5th through the 26th. Application deadline is Sunday, April 28th. A week, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today.
I was going to say the Tinies played a significant role in Fantasy Fair last year, didn't they, Zander?
They did, and will only be more so the case this year. They have militarized all Fairland Sheriff Association responsibilities under the Raglandshire banner. So, yes, I'm told they have. I'm told they have matching uniforms and little segways, and they will be patrolling the Fairlands for all 9 days. So, you don't want to get caught spitting or anything like that, because there will be fines levied against people for that sort of thing.
So that means I can't show up in a Mario costume and try to jump on top of them.
I would not. I really
get little
would not.
coins.
They wield a frightening amount of martial authority. There's no civilian oversight of Fairland sheriffs at all. They really have a terrifying amount of power, which is why we decided that only the Tinies could be trusted with it. So.
And
is
if
Lawrence still
something comes up to me and tells you to do something, you ask how high.
That's right. If something small and furry says jump, you should probably be in midair about the time they say it. Yeah.
You can't contribute your way out of it, though.
That's right. That's right. They're very generous.
They're bribable.
They're very bribable. They're strict, but it's all for relay. So they've got their hearts are in the right places.
But it's okay. They've only got very small purses.
Carrie
Xavier Starsider is going to be commandant of the Fairland Sheriffs, so Raglandshire is coming out in full force to support the Fantasy Fair, and the art walk in that community every year is just another one of my favorite events every season. As Online B Fantasy Fair and what those guys do in that massive and amazing just gardens and gardens and gardens of amazing in-world art. So that's another amazing community building and event in SL that really just emphasizes what you can do in a virtual world.
The vision of a militarized army of Tinies is still
it's a frightening thing. None of us
terrifying.
are completely comfortable with that, but what are you going to do? There's no appeal system whatsoever. I'm not an expert on Fairland constitutional law, and I'm always quick to say this, but what I understand, it's pretty much whatever they say it is. Bail, fines, you name it. So be on your best behavior.
There was a lovely little one of those cat things on the web. We always end up talking about cats, don't we? Where there's a small little red pussycat looking into a mirror and imagining that it's a lion, because the reflection shows a lion. And my pussycat avatar is fine, because he wanders around everywhere quickly. But then, I keep saying, people calling me little. I tell them that I am actually a very big cat. I just come from Raglandshire. Put it all in perspective. So ferocious big cat will descend on the Tinies and maybe adopt a bit of their uniform. That is going to be fun. I love the Tinies. We often used to, when there's a clip available, we often open the Metaverse Week in Review show. Whatever we've got from the Tinies will do, thank you, you know.
So, if a lot of people who were at Fantasy Fair last year recall the big breaking news, unexpected news, the shotgun wedding of Basement Kitty owner and operator Clever Desno to fallen god Alia Baroque. Alia obviously was on the receiving end of the shotgun in that setting. He was told he was receiving a special award and arrived on a sim to find Clover at the altar in a wedding gown and about 50 Tinies with shotguns pointing at Alia. So the surprise shotgun wedding of Clover and Alia was one of the big news events of Fantasy Fair last year. And yeah, when you got Tinies around, it's always something.
Right. Okay. Now, Pooky has told me she needs to leave on the half hour, which gives us about 10 minutes more or something. She says. Also, I have to say that later on, when we're back at Metaverse Week in Review, we'll be showing a small edit from the mosquito film we were talking about early, and it will be.
So just give everybody a little taste of it. It's going to be released to the general public later on.
The idea is we will put it live, and we'll show you 2 minutes of it. And it will be deleted from the replay. So if you want to see it, stay live here. It's an exclusive, but we do have to hold back some of it for the client, basically, don't we, Pooky? So that's what's going to happen with that clip. But you're going to get a nice teaser. Hopefully, the one with the fascinating Inworld.
Well, it's such a this is such a great medium, and so many of us, in fact, all of us. Have been inspired by the ability to record what we're involved in, what we see, things we imagine, and getting really specific is such a great freedom in its accomplishment. And I know you know what I mean, because you do this with Metaverse TV. All the time, and Saffia does with her shows, and Tara and Kevin, and it's really great, and it's so wonderful to be a part of this, and it's great.
It is. What can we say without honking our own horns too much, really? But yeah, it's a wonderful experience doing all this sort of stuff. Now,
that was a little summation speech there. It's great.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah.
Ahoy and yay.
I have always loved your strapline, Pooky. I've waited all my life to be this busy.
Oh, yes.
Better believe it.
That if you know Pooky on Skype, you will know that's her tagline. Very good. It's very good. It's been there for a long while too.
and of course the line that precedes it, and tartan textures make me dizzy. You don't have to discuss the yes issue now.
That is true. Something I have been.
Love a debate on that. Oh my God, could you imagine? We need to debate.
I talking of tartan textures, I've suddenly been reminded of something. I'm just slightly curious to ask you succinctly, but I do see a lot of feeds from you on Facebook which link to Scottish affairs.
Yes, I really believe that a small country can achieve sustainability. And I've thought about that even before the Yes campaign came out, the vote for devolution, or as I consider it, evolution. And knowing the history of Scotland as I do, for some reason, fascinated, as I, of course, I'm interested in science and looked for information on inventions, I kept being pulled back to that northern country because of the great engineering background, and also the great tradition of public education, education for all. And that really created it's a great nation, fought for independence, and didn't achieve it. James's birth as the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and led when he became King of England, of course, to the Union of the Crowns, and then later on it was kind of a deal, and the country's kind of sold out a bit, and it's a small country. I mean, it's like Norway or like Sweden. It really has the ability to govern itself, and I think that this is an important opportunity for the people of Scotland. I guess I'm living vicariously in some sense through this ability for them to be free.
It's been a long-running issue in the UK, but Scotland has always had a certain degree of going its own way. For example, the way local government, the way the National Health Service, and all sorts of things that you think of as part of Great Britain are actually very different in Scotland.
And the legal system.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way, looking at the state of the United Kingdom's general government at the moment, it would be no surprise if they voted with their feet.
It might be an opportune time, and the country obviously isn't really going anywhere, right? It's still there to the north. It's attached. It could be a very interesting new era.
At the risk of keeping you a couple of seconds longer, this is actually quite pertinent to conversations we've had about the web before, because when we look at virtual worlds especially, of course, we see a global platform. But also with enterprise and crafts and stuff like that, a little craft shop can be operating anywhere and it can be selling worldwide because of the web. And I see a parallel need. Whilst we are globally empowered by the web, I think there's a parallel need to get back to what you might call localization in the real world. Because anything local now has the power of global reach. But we need to revive our communities, inner cities, and things like that. And it needs to go back to the community and localization, I personally think, instead of, everything becoming more conglomerated, whether it be nations, corporations, what have you.
Outsourced labor, for example. Yep.
So
having industry for the people at good wages is a good formula for the stability of a country. And I guess, go ahead.
It's all changing. It's hard to know, but I really think that there is an opportunity there for local communities.
Although very interestingly, some businesses in China invested in Harris Tweed. They took a significant share of Harris Tweed.
Oh dear. So I hope Scotland doesn't outsource the tweed business, or we'll be wearing Chinese kilts.
Isn't that interesting? It can't be real Harris Tweed unless it's made on the island,
Made at source, yeah. Yeah, I have a large collection of kilts, believe it or not, Inworld, I hasten to add. But I don't actually get to wear them that much. But I've got some of those nice Scottish clan type costumes in my inventory somewhere. I'm replying to Deb's Region is in the audience here.
well, I would hope, Mal, that if you decide to wear one of your kilts in World, that you not use the pose you're currently using.
No, Thank you, Tara.
Sorry, couldn't resist that one.
At least one mystery.
Salva!
At least one mystery will be resolved that way, won't it? I don't know where anybody ever caught during the Olympics. I don't know. This is really a bit awful thing to say, really, but during the Olympics, one of the events, the Queen was accompanied by Prince Philip, who'd just been undertaking an operation in I think it was a urinary tract operation or something. But he turned up at the Olympic event in his kilt, and there were a couple of shots that had to be rapidly censored. While he was sitting there in his kilt, it was hysterical, really. But never mind. Should not mention those things, should we? Okay, well, I know you've got to run, Pooky. Before you do, and bringing Phelan into the conversation here a little bit, you actually are off to nap Virtual World Best Practices, aren't you? Giving away awards and things at the end. Are you going to be conspiring to do that together this year?
I'm sorry, what was that, Mal?
Well, I was just, before we bring Phelan into the conversation and you disappear, I was just wondering if you're going to be hosting anything at the Virtual World's Best Practices event this year. I seem to remember last year you were giving out awards to various...
I'm pretty sure we have Pooky on permanent retainer for the next 20 years for doing that.
Right. It's a fun event. It's the climax of the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education. God, that is a handful. Pooky comes on and gives all the awards for the best of the best.
Well, Phelan asked me to do something, I am there. I have such respect for what Rockcliffe University has done here on Second Life, and the depth and breadth of the educational. It's beyond outreach because it's sort of like actuality reach. So of course, anything you need me to do, and I really hope to be involved again with Relay for Life. That is very close to my heart. Working on that in Second Life.
Wonderful. Well, I know you're dying to go, so I'm going to let you get off. We're going to get Pet Love to turn the camera on Phelan or somebody, so that you can make a dignified.
Shall I dance my way off then?
Yeah, you can dance your way off the stage or something, or a dignified exit on camera. Basically, we're getting used to this. We flip the camera around so that nobody sees you go. But thanks an awful lot.
Have a big hook.
Thank you, and big hugs. And we really are all in this as one, and can't wait to see you guys again. And thank you everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here, and wonderful to see you and hear you, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, Phelan, let's switch to you and get a little update on, Rockcliffe, but particularly, I guess, best practices. Here I go again. Virtual World Best Practices in Education 2013.
There's a prize for being able to say that 5 times fast. So I think as we mentioned last time I was on the show here, we're looking at the dates of July 24th, 27th, which is the weekend after Relay for Life. And we've got a couple of people that are working on, like anybody that's taken a look at the website will notice that the website has been substantially improved from last year. So there's more enhancements that are coming along, and we're just in the process of writing our own conference software in order to start accepting applications or accepting proposals to the conference. Because what we found is that a lot of the conference software that's out there is, for some very strange reason, is just so skewed towards real life conferences. I've got no idea why. It's just so. We're trying to figure out this whole thing in terms of the fact that essentially what we're dealing with is 2,000 people with multiple personality disorders, especially when we start talking about people inside multiple virtual worlds. So there's their real life persona, then their Second Life persona, then there's their Open Sim persona, then there's their World of Warcraft persona, and then there's, right? It just goes on and on and on. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can accommodate that as part of the conference. So that when people are submitting, as they submit, they can submit under, we have their real life details and then, what information that they want to present to people in terms of, I'm presenting this as, are you presenting it as your real life person or, your Second Life person? And it's been to a large extent, it's one of the challenges that we found going through this. And I don't think people, how do I want to put this? One of the things that we've seen out over the last 4 or 5 years is that trying to do a real life conference inside a virtual environment is fraught with challenges, and the biggest set of challenges all have to do around communication, because you've got people that will come in and they'll give you their First Life credentials but not their Second Life credentials, or they'll give you their Second Life credentials and not their First Life credentials, and then trying to match that up so that we can contact people back has just been an absolute nightmare year over year. So we're trying to get a huge handle on that this year, so that we can actually engage with people appropriately, which has been one of the biggest complaints that we've had over previous conferences, where people have said, well, why didn't you contact us? And I've had to go back to them and say, well, all you gave me was your Second Life contact, and I've got no email, I've got no telephone number, I got no nothing.
Right? Well, yeah, I mean, we have the same program, so I don't know if, we record voices on Skype, for example, and we film in virtual worlds, and, I'll be looking up the avatar on Skype to no avail, and then I'll be looking at the real world person in Second Life to no avail. It can get very, very confusing when...
Oh, yeah.
Unless they're people you're in touch with all the while. But it's interesting. I mean, you know Agile Bill, for example, and I can't tell you the details, but we were recently involved in a filming there, which went into all sorts of virtual platforms, and they became, after a while, really havoc to film, because the moment you enter a new environment, the rule book is different. You don't know how to hide screen interfaces and stuff like that if you need to, and it's kind of uphill work. OpenSim, fortunately, is almost the same as Second Life for our purposes, but I suddenly realized just how many virtual interfacing tools there are out there. Everything from little things with little dots and like 2D room plans with people moving between them to sort of 2.5D pixelated stuff, full through to full 3D with different platforms that got different things about them, like gestures and animation are really good on one particular platform, but there's almost nothing else. Others seem to be dedicated to showing in-world screens of real life outworld websites and stuff. So it really is a complex, and especially when you do a mixed reality event, mixing and matching all the streams and feeds together to get something broadcastable is just the tactical task of all of its own, I think it's fair to say. But
it is.
So, I mean, we haven't actually talked about the broadcasting, which we'll do behind the scenes of VWP this year, but more fully, should I say? But you're also planning this year to be on OpenSim, aren't you, as well as in Second Life, regardless of other...
We are, well, there's a couple of different things happening with the conference this year. So the first one is, and actually I can probably give a little hint as to this right at the moment. The call for proposal is going to go out probably April 28th at this point, because it looks like we're about ready to launch the proposal website. So that will be open for proposals. We're planning on May 6th. So right at the moment, we haven't set a formal announcement out for that right at the moment, because it still is dependent upon the programming. But those are the dates we're targeting right at the moment, and we seem to be on track for that, which is a good thing. But I mean, some of the other things that we're looking at is we're specifically targeting 4 different types of virtual worlds for this year, in terms of allowing people to submit proposals which are not necessarily in Second Life. So obviously OpenSim is certainly one of those. We're looking to make use of Jocadia Grid as part of that. We're also looking to use Unity, and possibly working with the folks over at Reaction Grid, or whatever they've changed their name to now. I heard something that they're about to change their name. But we're looking at Unity in terms of a platform. And then the other one we're looking at is Cloud Party. So we're hoping to sort of, the big experiment for this year really is to say, okay, we know how to run a conference. We have our hiccups, but we know how to run a conference inside Second Life. Can we now extend that to multiple virtual worlds? So we have a few plans in place for how we're going to do it, but it really depends upon who submits what and which platform they choose to submit for.
Okay, I'm with you. One of the fascinating things actually is, trying out odd in-world things where you've got media on a prim, for example, and because you get these odd virtual spaces, I will call them, that are actually embeddable on the web. You pull the embed from the web onto a prim, and then you're sort of looking at a Second Life prim, which has got another virtual world in it, and it's very very odd in some ways, but there are a fair number of possibilities there. Rockcliffe on OpenSim. Am I right in thinking you're on Jocadia, or are you just hosted by?
We're on Jocadia Grid. We're not. When we were on Reaction Grid before they got rid of, because Reaction Grid got out of the whole OpenSim concept. Right, with a couple of minor exceptions. Essentially, they basically decided that their future was going to be Jibe, right, and Unity, which is great because there's a dedicated group in order to go to for that particular type of thing. But when we were looking at, okay, well, if we're going to move, where do we want to go? And we were looking at the idea of, do we really want to white label a grid for Rockcliffe? And we eventually came to the determination that we actually want to focus more on the content rather than being a service provider, at least in the context of providing virtual world services. But Jocadia Grid is very specialized with regards to providing that technical environment for specifically for educators and for education. So we had made the decision that was going to be a good place to go, and it actually the performance of the servers, Vivox is working just fine over there. I mean, it's just we got 12 sims up and running, and it's like the cost is ridiculous in comparison to Second Life.
It's funny. It's funny, actually. I'll ask you if I'm at it. Because I actually used to log into Jocadia Grid quite a lot because my main hypergrid avatar was based in Jocadia. I had my other one over in the original Reaction Grid on OpenSim, which Tara and I had sort of estates there, and we lost those, of course, when they gave up OpenSim. But I can't go into details, but at the moment we are sort of working on a grid, actual grid, as opposed to Sims in another grid. And I was in World on the hypergrid a lot last week, so testing my sort of hypernauting around, because the hypergrid to me is crucial because when the call for audiences goes out, then they need to be able to hypergrid in. There's no question about that. And I actually went into Jocadia. I loaded up my hypergrid avatar, with my colossal inventory that rivals Second Life, and tried to TP out over to Philippe's grid, and I couldn't do it. I don't know if it was just a temporary glitch or whether Jocadia turned hyper.
How long ago was that?
It would have been Monday, Tuesday this week. I sent a quick IM.
Oh, okay.
I sent an IM to JK, but I didn't get a reply. So it may have just been a temporary glitch, but I mention it because obviously if there are going to be events on OpenSim, you certainly want people to be able to hypergrid in to Jocadia, don't you?
Certainly. And I know that when we first got on there, the hypergridding wasn't quite enabled yet. So, we haven't done a lot of playing around with that just yet, but it's certainly one of the reasons why we decided to go with Jocadia Grid. I mean, right at the moment, we have a Jibe environment. We have a sim on Spot on 3D. We've got one on Jocadia Grid, and then we've got one in Second Life. And sort of the reason why we've decided to go with those four particular platforms specifically is because each one of those offers something very unique in terms of the technology and what we can potentially do with it in terms of content. And now that's a big difference compared to, and it's not a slight at groups like Kitely or Inworlds or anything else like that. But I mean, you go into Inworlds and what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And well, if that's all we're going to get, then we've already got a presence like that, and it's in Second Life, right? Yeah. I mean, they've got a phenomenal community over there. Right, but from a technology standpoint, there's nothing new that we can learn from going over there. So if we went over there, it would strictly be because of the social network that was there, not because of the technology.
But I think I think this is very. I mean, I'm very keen on the hypergrid, but I do foresee this is a problem with there's Inworlds, there's Avination, there's Spot on 3D. There's quite a few grids on OpenSim that are deliberately setting themselves up as walled garden, sort of minor competitors to Second Life. And as you say, when you've got Second Life with its Inworld community, then it's sort of, you do have to ask, why do you need to be on these other grids? But when you've got a grid or space on a grid that is hypergrid enabled, then you're actually dealing with a grid wide, a multi-grid wide audience, which then begins to compete with the community in Second Life. And there are possibilities there where you can get people to just pop in from other grids to attend your conference.
But it's not really a competition, though, because, I mean, to a certain extent it is, because obviously they need to make enough money to keep the platform up and running and going and all those good types of things, right? I mean, there's only so much, you can only put money out of pocket so long, right, before you have to shut the doors, right? But in terms of the community, I mean, there's certain things that Spot On and that Inworlds and Kitely and some of these other, walled garden type things offer, which are not based upon the technology. They're based upon the social network. They're based upon the way that you interact with it. The neat thing about Spot On 3D is they've got, and I know this is extremely controversial, but I mean, it's, they have different tools that they're introducing. They have a different way of going about the procurement of different products and services that they have over there from anybody else. And it's not to say that that's the way things are going to be done in the future. It's not even to say that that's going to be a successful business model long term, but it's different. Yeah. And there may be parts of that which are extremely important to the way virtual worlds develop in the future. And people who just blatantly say, oh, well, I don't want to be involved with that because of, this whole double Dutch thing. They're completely ignoring the fact that, something, the world doesn't work. The rest of the world doesn't work the way Philip Rosendale originally envisioned Second Life was going to work. And I think you mentioned at the top of the program this whole aspect that, or maybe actually, my apology, I think Tara mentioned it, where Linden Labs may need to give up the Linden as a quote unquote currency. We all understand it as being a free floating currency with the US dollar, but the US Federal Reserve would perceive that as a threat if that gained any sort of real traction. And, for a couple of million people, it's not going to be a big deal. It's the same thing as Canadian Tire money up here. But if you start expanding this worldwide, right, that has some very real implications. And for a company.
It's funny. It's funny. We actually had quite a prolonged discussion on this last week, and it's it's a global platform, which makes currency awkward. And we're seeing the rise of things like Bitcoin and PayPal, where you actually have currency systems that are global, but they're not. They run in tandem with real-world exchange rates, and I suspect that is more the future. If Second Life itself converted to US dollars, I know the servers are in the US. It's a US company, but I don't know. I think they'd be better off linking to something like a tradable and a recognized by the Treasury, as it were, some kind of virtual exchange, because otherwise we'd all be running around with US dollars and around the world. I don't know how apt that would be, but it's a very complex discussion. So
it is. I mean, let me just give you one aspect. I mean, it's one of the really nice things that I've always liked about the Linden is that it's been politically agnostic.
Yeah.
In terms of, with the exception of the politics with inside Linden Labs, right, being, primary. But I mean, otherwise, it's essentially the world's first truly global currency, where it doesn't matter what part of the world that you live in. You could live in China, Canada, the U.S., Brazil, Mexico. I mean, anywhere inside the EU, it doesn't matter. Everybody has equal access to that currency, irrespective of where it is that they live or what political system they're in, or any other ways and means in which countries limit access to their currency.
Yeah.
And if Linden Lab were to turn around and all of a sudden say, guess what, we're going to get rid of this and go strictly to US dollars, that's going to hurt a huge number of companies and businesses that have developed within Second Life whose owners live outside of the US. Because, I hate to say it, but I mean, the US is so xenophobic in its approach to its banking system. Right, we talk about the U.S. dollar about it being a global currency, but it's only a global currency if you happen to be a U.S. citizen. Right, at that point, you've got access to, if you've got a U.S. Social Security number, you've got access to, massive amounts of opportunity in terms of being able to accept credit card transactions, limits. I mean, try to get you as a foreign citizen. No, sorry, that's the wrong word. But
I'm thinking of. I never liked the expression "third world," but there's no better real descriptive. There are a lot of third world people who are active in Second Life, and because the Linden is geared to the American dollar without actually being the American dollar as such, it means they sort out their taxes and things like at the points where they would draw the money. And of course, the value of the Linden in those countries is actually extremely high, even though its exchange rate against the dollar is really low. So there's a discrepancy there in the sense that people can actually make livable money in the third world working in these environments.
They can, but there are definite limitations in terms of how much you can withdraw, not just out of Second Life, but when you start looking at things like PayPal into it, some of these other online transaction systems. If you're outside of the US, try to get PayPal to increase the amount of money that you can trade on a per month basis. Right, US dollars, right? It is next to impossible because they say, we can't possibly do that. You're not a US citizen. And it's sort of like, yeah, but I'm running a business here.
Yeah. Well, right? I think the issue, Phelan, isn't what PayPal wants to do. It isn't necessarily what Linden Lab wants to do. It's what the regulators are hitting them with, and especially post 9/11. And that's the thing from my reading on the information that came out a week or so back of a site. I forget the name of the what the regulatory body is that has issued some initial rulings on the subject of virtual currency that definitely puts Linden Lab and the Linden within the "it walks like a duck and acts like a duck" camp. Is that the costs to Linden Lab to satisfy the regulatory requirements as a money exchange are quite steep. We obviously can't put a dollar figure on it, but you're talking a lot of reporting, a lot of extra things, and it's a situation that at least one commentator on the regulations said that Linden Lab could decide that the expense of jumping through those regulatory hoops was more trouble and was going to be more costly than some other kind of than doing something other than continuing the Linden. So it's hard. It's anybody's guess how this will all shake out eventually, but. I mean, Mal, I don't know if you've paid any attention to the Bitcoin stuff this week, but it's gone. It went nova and then went bust, and that it's volatile in spades because there is no central coordinating thing, and that's Bitcoin's a little different, but
I'm assuming that. Sorry, one last comment here. I'm assuming that if Linden Lab still has the same lawyers that they've had for the last 5 or 6 years, that they are eventually going to get out of this whole, if they have this pressure put on them, that the lawyers will basically come in and say it's not worth it. The interesting thing, however, is that one of the things that Linden Lab has clearly shown is that there is a demand for a currency which is politically agnostic. And that need is not going to go away just because Linden Lab decides they potentially are going to get out of the Linden. Right? That need is still going to be there. So the first person that decides that they're willing to jump through those hoops I think they're going to find a very willing market on the other end of that, that obstacle course.
Yeah, I think, forgetting virtual worlds for a second, I mean, online life is so prevalent these days. I think there has to be a way of, having a wallet, that exists. All currency is virtual. It's one of the original virtual commodities. To further, trade, basically. I think there is a need for an internationally tradable currency that is not nationally based, for online. It's obviously got to have an exchange rate against existing currencies, but there should hopefully be a proper mechanism, a trustworthy source or choice of sources, for total online banking. But I'd like to
maybe EVE Online will do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this whole story goes back to the gold farming business in WoW and stuff like that, which are just games and never been more than games. Linden Labs rely on calling their currency a token. And this is, really what Zander says. It's got to be currency and not a token. But I'd like to widen this a bit. It sort of bears on this a little bit. Bring Zander and Saffia back in, if I may. Because you take... I call Second Life the high street of the metaverse, and it's got a huge community. We look at, say, the funds raised by Relay for Life, which is a financial issue too, of course, and you can see that with the right marketing, the right willpower, and community, you can do a lot of good. In terms of raising funds for, in this case, for the American Cancer Society. And it occurs to me that some months back in Inworld, which is very like Second Life in this it's a walled garden, also had their own Relay for Life weekend. I take it you know of that, Zander.
Yes.
And obviously the amount they raised didn't compete with Second Life because the platform was nowhere near so big. But it was another example, I presume. I'm not even sure Inworld has it. I presume it has some kind of currency of its own. But they're a very small grid, and they're clearly up against. They would clearly be subject to the same sort of changes that Second Life would be. It's I'm trying to think whether Metropolis grid. Do you know, Zander, how many grids have had Relay for Life outside Second Life? How many Relay for Life events have been on virtual platforms?
Certainly in Worlds, and also there's some penetration into World of Warcraft
right.
as well. It's a bit a more indirect what happens over there because of the fact that there isn't an in-game currency that can be exchanged out for US dollars over on WoW. So it's more about having a rally and then making use of a system that ACS calls Convia, which is a means by which people can make secure donations over the ACS and the Relay for Life secure websites using credit cards and stuff like that. But certainly what we're doing in Relay in all of these platforms is what you might call micro fundraising, and I suppose the closest analogy that you could find would be something like the March of Dimes. We talk about in fundraising at large, and I come from a fundraising background in a number of different arts and cultural senses in the physical world career. We talk about the path to giving and essentially how much inertia you have to overcome in order just to get somebody to reach into their pockets and give you some money, and that inertia is proportional to the number and the complexity of the steps involved in that path to giving. I'm getting a little inside baseball here, and I'm going to get away from that in a moment, but the point is that if you go to the department store and there's a guy out there ringing the bell with a red bucket, and you just walk by and throw some change into that bucket And it's by that approach that the March of Dimes has been able to raise millions and millions and millions of dollars over the course of its lifespan. And I would say that's the closest analogy to what we do here in World. It's not a lot of money. It's it's the lindens that the average SL resident has in their pocket at any given moment. I would say 100, 200 lindens is probably the average donation that's given.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to whip out a credit card and give you a donation via a website, they're probably going to do 10 times that. You're probably looking at closer to $20 at least, but you're not going to get nearly as many people because there's so much more inertia to overcome just to get them to get the credit card out, go to the website, fill in all the forms. You're standing there doing a live music show in World, and you say, hey, you got the lindens in your pocket, reach out there, tap that kiosk, show it a little linden love. It's so easy, it's so simple, and it's just one of the easiest paths to givings ever. So all of these changes are very important, and certainly something that all fundraising and charitable communities in virtual worlds need to be keeping a very close eye on these things, because the potential impact on what we're doing here is massive.
Has Relay for Life itself sorry, I'm croaking today. Had any fundraising activities on OpenSim itself, by which I mean the hypergrid. You can have an event on one sim and people can hypergrid in, and of course, most of the hypergrid does not have currency. Some of them do, and there are a couple of web-based currency things where you can travel with OpenSim currency around the grids, but you tend to find a lot of stuff is still free on the hybrid, or there's not a great deal of currency there. But that doesn't mean people aren't willing to hypergrid into an event and cough up money. It's just, as you say, there's an uphill curve because they can't just transfer it out of an inventory like you can in Second Life. But have there been anything like that on OpenSim?
I'm not sure about OpenSim specifically. Or the sense of something going out over hypergrid itself. My sense is no, and that if it has been done there, it has been more on the scale of let's have a rally, let's get people together, let's see how many people we can, first of all, just get to an event in an alternative platform like that. And, a lot of times it's so easy to focus on the money because that's kind of the horse race side of it. It becomes the means by which we evaluate how effective what we're doing is in here, and it certainly is about Relay for Life as a fundraising entity, raising money for American Cancer Society. But all of that is... we can perhaps sometimes put a little too much emphasis on that and not enough emphasis on another equally important task that we're doing here, and which things like relay rallies in WoW and some of these other platforms are more than capable of, and that's just raising awareness. Pooky was talking earlier about the use of virtual reality for education, and that is such a big important part, raising awareness about health issues and helping people to just do something as simple as to know when and at what age for women you should be scheduling mammograms, for men having colonoscopies. There's a lot of good we can do just simply by raising awareness about health issues, and then also just in terms of I know for so many survivors in Second Life, people who have themselves battled and have won or are still just simply fighting that fight, you can't put a dollar amount on how much hope something like a Relay for Life raises. And I've been thinking of it as, in a sense, hope on demand. So many of our fellow relayers are relaying with us in Second Life because as a result of their particular battle with cancer, they're not able to get out there and do something as demanding physically as walk around a track at their local high school for 24 hours. It doesn't mean they don't want to be involved. It doesn't mean they don't need to be connected and involved to this. They just simply can't. So the idea of a relay that you don't have to go to it comes to you. We're going to eliminate all of those steps between you and the good energy, the good vibes, the good medicine that Relay for Life is. We're going to plug that right into your, into your home office, into your laptop, onto your mobile phone one of these days. I'm sure of it. So the idea of being able to bring that to people, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of whether they've got money to give or not, I think that's one of the most important sides of this. And that's something that we can certainly be looking at alternative platforms for as a way to relay virtually together.
So, in a way, you and Phelan converge on this point, do you? Because you both of you are there about conveying the message and enabling people, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is an extraordinarily powerful platform, and I do want to encourage people to take a minute, go visit the Fantasy Fair's website, which is fantasyfairsl.wordpress.com, and that's where you'll find out about all the stuff coming up April 20th to the 28th. But there's another website that I would really want to reach out to your viewers, Mal, to invite them to visit a different website, and that's relayforlife.org/Second Life. And that's the headquarters on the web for the Relay for Life of Second Life community at large. This is 100 years we're celebrating this year of ACS leading a global fight to end the scourge of cancer, and a Relay for Life is how each one of us can help them to finish that fight. So I just want to invite people to think about, if you're in SL, if you've got whether it's a music club or just a bunch of friends or whatever, think about forming a Relay for Life of Second Life team. It is great fun. It is a great use of a virtual platform. And anybody interested in finding out how to go out there and do that can find out more at relayforlife.org/Second Life.
Okay, well, I hope everybody caught that on live stream as well. So, pop along there,
We'd love to have you.
relayforlife.org/Second Life. It's quite funny reading the blogs. There are, I can't emphasize actually how many, just in the past couple of weeks, I've come across very small events, advertised in Second Life, and they've all been fundraisers for Relay for Life. They pass under the radar to some extent. They've got their own communities, performers have their own fans, shops have their own clientele, but lots of little events, but they all add up. This is the thing, and of the whole season, you're talking a great deal of potential revenue from just all these small events mixed together.
We have 50 to 60,000 people online at any given moment, and a huge percentage of them are this very moment looking for something not just entertaining, not just visually compelling. They're looking for something meaningful to do, and it's not exactly hard to find those things. What Phelan is doing, what Pooky is doing, what Saffia does, and what Relay does. These are all folks who are making incredibly good use of this virtual platform, and it's just wonderful to see so many great ideas coming to fruition now 10 years on in this platform, and I feel like we're just now beginning to take a look at what's really truly possible.
The 10th anniversary seems rather minor when you consider that what you just said is you've been at it for a century.
That's right.
That it puts it all in perspective, really, doesn't it?
It does, and yet, cancer deaths reached a kind of a peak in 1991, and that was when really Relay for Life kicked in and said, okay, this has gone we're in epidemic proportions here. This is a tragedy that we're going to have to get very serious about, and the most compelling news that I could possibly hope to share with anybody is that in those years, in the decades since 1991, because as a direct result of what Relay for Life has gone out there, obviously not just in Second Life, but now in Second Life, what Relay for Life has done in terms of raising those funds and awareness as well, there's been a 20% drop in all kinds of cancer deaths since that peak in 1991. Somebody did the math. It means there are 1,200,000 people alive in the world right now who wouldn't be there. They would have died since 1991 if we weren't doing what we do as relayers, if all of these people were not coming together to raise an extraordinary amount of money every year. So 1,200,000 people alive on Earth right now because of Relay for Life directly. And our good friend Trader One over at T1 Radio figured it out. That amounts to there are something like 400 birthdays every single day that wouldn't be happening that day without the intervention that Relay has stepped up to provide in those years since 1991.
Whoa.
It's a good number.
I love statistics, but yeah, they yell at you.
They really do. They really do.
Phenomenal.
So sometimes it's one of those things that you can feel like, it's too big. We're never going to be able to solve this problem. Wrong. We are solving it. We are winning this fight. And
the pace of change in research and technological development is going apace anyway. It's just, obviously the funds he raised and things are contributing to that research, amongst other things. And it's accelerating, so it's great.
An insider in the search for the cure once confided to me, this was very recently, in the lifetime of people in college today, we will have a cure. It will no longer be a fatal disease. Now you think about that.
Yeah.
And every dollar we raise, every linden or dollar or yen or yuan or rupee, you name it, every single one of those we raise hastens the day when that will be the case. But we are winning this fight. And with the support of people like the people here on this panel today, viewers of Metaverse, with support of our media friends like Metaverse, like you, Mel, Saffia, and Pooky, Drax. We're helping to get the word out there that we're winning this fight, and what we need is just more people to come along, and we'll move that line of when we're going to get there closer and closer to the line we're standing on right now.
Great. The race is on. Saffia,
Bet.
you were gonna come in there, I think.
I was. I was going to ask Zander about something quite interesting, I think, at that Fantasy Fair are doing, and very appropriately, which is that there's actually a metaphor underlying the fair, isn't there, that's about cancer, and that's turning everyone who comes to the fair into a chance to participate in a rather exciting way.
It is. It's my favorite part of Fantasy Fair. Last year we decided that we would introduce an element, these have become very popular, an interactive hunt that would be part of Fantasy Fair. And it just made a lot of sense, and somebody said, well, why aren't we doing this? I thought, well, here we are servicing this huge cross-section of fantasy role-play communities in Second Life, and maybe we ought to, what do you think, evolve to become a fantasy role-play experience in our own right. And so that sort of hit us like a ton of bricks, and we realized this was something Fantasy Fair could do that was unique to its theme and to the elements that comprise it. And so that started last year. We estimate that about 1,000 people came through and participated in the interactive hunt. We have a Relay for Life vendor, and that sells the HUD that gets you started on the hunt. And there is a story that underlies it all, and I think it's one that anybody who in particular has battled cancer or who has helped someone they love to battle it, I think there are themes and elements in there you will recognize. In the Fairlands, we talk about an entity called the Unweaver. And we're quick to mention that in the Outworld, it's called cancer, but it's the same thing. It's just that force of entropy that's at work in the universe. It can't create anything. It can only tear things down, and it is our dedication to being creative souls that stands against it in every world, in any world. And so what we're rallying would-be heroes to come and do is to join us in this classic fantasy quest saga, be the hero of the story, and help us to thwart the Unweaver's intentions in the Fairlands, and by proxy also to thwart cancer's intentions in the physical world as well. So it just is a wonderful thing, and this year we're hoping to have about 5 times the number of people come through and participate in that. So lucky to have David Abbott, the screenwriter of The Blackened Mirror, who is the writer of the story of The Hunt. Rin Verwood of Solarium is our production designer, and we're really blessed to have Mad P Productions doing all of the technology to make The Hunt possible. So really got a tiger team on this one, and it's going to be really astonishing this year. The quest for the Key of Hope is the story this year, and we just really hope a lot of people will come and answer that call for heroes.
So with a team like that, you can't lose.
It's going to be amazing.
I believe that you'll be able to do the hunt after Fantasy Fair as well, won't you? Part of it.
That's right. This is another great thing this year. The fair is only open for 9 days. We wish it could be, for 9 weeks, but the reality is it's just open for this narrow window of time. But we were very fortunate this year. We found a sponsor who was so generous and willing to step up and really enable us to keep the Hunt sim. We have now, as I said, 10 sims this year. Our 10th sim is a sim dedicated to the Hunt itself. And we're going to be able to keep that sim on the grid for about 3 weeks after the fair closes. So a great way to, if you don't get the word about Fantasy Fair before April 28th, you'll still be able to come and participate in the hunt all the way. I believe it's going right up through the end of May. And again, the best place for all of the information on that will be the fantasyfairsl.wordpress.com.
That's excellent, because it means you can put your time in the gridlock of when the Fantasy Fair is actually on,
right,
to visiting the vendors and then do the hunt afterwards.
That's right. That's right.
So,
There's good incentives for coming and doing it early. You're going to get more goodies for doing it that way. But we wanted to be able to share that with people. And the truth is, it takes us a while to to get the word out there. And that's another reason why we're so grateful for what programs like Metaverse Week in Review is doing for us here and helping us to get the word out there about that.
And happy hunting, because of course this hunt is going to be
Absolutely.
a featured hunt on Happy Hunting coming up this Friday. So
Oh, great. Yes, of course. It's this Friday, back in season.
yes, we're back in
Yes.
season. Oh, wait till you see the Hunt News section. We just have so many gifts. Rosamu just couldn't bear, took over an entire sim, I think, to display them. Just a huge number of gifts. That's in the first part. And then in the second part, we will have a sneak preview of the Hunt sim at the Fantasy Fair, and we'll be talking to Zander. Obviously, the Hunt community will be able to find out more about it through Happy Hunting.
Well, I just want to do a little quid pro quo here and mention that Prim Perfect Productions is going to be one of our merchants on the fairgrounds this year, at the Fairlands this year, and they've got a pretty exciting launch that they're going to be saving for Fantasy Fair this year as well. I understand we're back to questing for a certain Prim that may or may not be golden in hue. Is that right?
Yes.
That's right. Yep. We're relaunching the quest for the Golden Prim, and I want to do some plotting with Zander about ways of launching this, because I think it's going to be really exciting. Martini Descavalante is making the most amazing set where this will happen. We've got one of the stores. And it's just going to be incredible. I'll tell you all about it next week, probably with pictures.
It'd be great. And of course, we had the comic artist behind that on the show a few weeks ago. If you care to check our archives, folks, it's exciting indeed. So, I think we're probably going to have to start wrapping up soon. Is there any other? Is there any other news? Any other news pending, Saffia, apart from what we covered so far?
Yes, I've got a couple of pieces of news to bring up. The Art India lab on the Shekhawati sim, that lovely Indian sim where they have a fantastic art gallery. They've got a new exhibition there called Future Worlds. And they've got two artists. Jeju Fang is putting on an exhibition of something called The Lab, which is in two parts, and it's a vision of the future where pollution and technique made surviving impossible for human beings, and the last child is protected by cyborgs. So that's one installation. And the other installation at Art India is Thoth Jansen, who's got something called Mind Melter. Now, he is just amazing at streaming images and media. He says it's best to see this with the sun on midnight, and it's called Mind Melter. So that should be well worth taking a look at. And the other thing that I was going to talk about, yes, Darren Greene, who was on the other week talking about his comic Splintered Rock. He's now doing a Kickstarter to raise funds for the second issue of that, the second series of it, perhaps I should say. And he's not asking a huge sum; it's a fairly modest sum. And I really would urge everyone to go and take a look at that. That's because I think it's a very, very interesting project. And you can find that either by searching for his comic Splintered Rock and going to the Kickstarter from there. But I've also flagged it up on the Prim Perfect blog, so if you're a Prim Perfect reader, you'll find it there too. And I'm sure, Mal, you'll probably have promoted it or will promote it. And
find the tweets and what have you. Yes.
And push them out, yes. And I know Bevan has, so thank you, Bevan.
Great.
And that's it from me. That's my news. Yeah.
Okay. I do have one other thing immediately from the feeds here, actually, which starts tomorrow and goes on to Wednesday, and is yet another Relay for Life fundraiser. And it resonates a bit because it's the Woodstock Relay for Life of SL. And apparently there's an auction involved and a sort of 3-day sort of recreation of Woodstock, if that is possible. So auction entertainment for 3 days starting tomorrow. I'm trying to find a sim here and I can't find it.
It'll be just north of American Cancer Society's sim. Actually, it just borders the ACS sim just to the north of it.
Great. Right, so yet another plug and another way you can contribute to Relay for Life. And, Woodstock, what more can I say? Showing my age. So we'll find out what that's about. Okay, Phelan, let's come back to you for a little roundup. What's on anything more to say, or maybe what's on your agenda for the week, aside from Rockcliffe, even if there is such a thing?
Aside from Rockcliffe, well, why don't I start with VWBPE? I know we are going to be looking for peer reviewers coming up shortly. And other call for volunteers are going to happen at various different intervals over the next couple of months. So I know that that's also going to be occurring in addition to the call for proposals. It's interesting that we've got the registration for VWBP open. We were delaying putting out a formal announcement about it until we had the call for proposals out, but we've already got about 24 people that have already pre-registered for the conference. So that's I'm just sort of laughing at that just because I find it very interesting how many people are just looking forward to sort of getting onto that particular bandwagon. I know with regards to Relay for Life, we are, in terms of Rockcliffe, we are going to be supporting that as well coming up this year. So, I mean, we've already agreed to support two of the Sims that are going to be in Relay for Life. So, certainly that's happening. We've got a couple of other things from the Rockcliffe perspective, though, that I'm sort of keeping under wraps for right at the moment, but we've got some interesting things that I'm hoping within about a month we're going to have some very interesting announcements that we're going to be able to make. And we've got a new website that will be launching at that particular point in time, and a couple of other interesting technical tidbits that I'm hoping to release. So I just thought I'd throw a little teaser out about that right at the moment. And then hopefully in a month I'll be able to come back and I'll be able to let you guys all in terms of what some of the big plans are coming up for Rockcliffe over the next month or so.
Okay, well, that would be great. We look forward to seeing you whenever the news is ready to break, so to speak. Great. Okay, well, I think it's now time to turn back to Tara. I know she had a couple of things in the beginning and maybe some thoughts on discussion we've had so far. So over to you, Tara.
Well, great discussion. And let me just quickly cover the two items that I didn't get to. One is actually apropos of Phelan's comments about Cloud Party. And that is that Sin Skyberg, who was Linden Labs Vice President of Customer Relations for many years, has become the Cloud Party's Director of Community and Communications. Sin ran Second Life's Community and Support Organization for 5 years and was laid off by Linden Lab in the, as been referred to as the bloodbath of 2010, when a lot of people left. She had a stint after that with Wikimedia. And her comment that she made was as soon as she hung out with folks in Inworld and Cloud Party and spoke to the CEO and the rest of the team, she knew she wanted back in. They were expressing all the things that I believe about virtual experiences and community, the possibility inherent in this type of platform, the need to listen to your users, desire to communicate and interact. Anyway, so I thought that was a rather interesting item. Corey Andre,
yeah,
however his last name is pronounced, is the founder of Cloud Party. So, and obviously Corey was one of the founders of Second Life. So, we've kind of got this interplay going on there. People move from place to place, and they kind of tag along. People they pull in that they knew from the former location. Anyway, and the other item. The U.S. Federal Consortium announced its finalists in its annual virtual challenge. which has been really interesting to watch that over the several years this has been going on. The finalists, they had two categories this year, one for critical thinking and adaptability, and the second being navigation interface into a virtual environment. And the focus on this particular area was exploring how the interface and immersive environment can be improved for the purpose of navigation. And the three finalists in this are just, eye-popping. I really want to learn more about all three of these. One of them involves interactions using the brain, cognitive, emotional, facial gestures, voice, and body movements. Another one involves not using a traditional mouse or keyboard in using Microsoft Kinect, and the use of Dance Revolution Pad. That's number 2, and number 3 uses off-the-shelf uses Microsoft Kinect in connection with Unreal Development Kit. So all three of these look rather fascinating on that finalists, and the others on the critical thinking ones also look great. So I'll endeavor to do a little more digging on this and do a little more report. There's major prize money involved on this one, with the first prize getting $10,000, and the awards are coming up. Oh, right. Naturally, there is nowhere in this article it says when the awards are actually being given. I think for some reason, I think it's in May. They do a conference, and I think that's probably when that happens. So, anyway, there'll be more on that, and I think those are going to be some really interesting things to learn more about.
We do try to relay that conference actually when it happens, so I'm sure we'll have news on that later. Yeah. So otherwise, it's been a fabulous group here today. Boy, we run way over time.
Delighted to hear all this good stuff, and Phelan and Pooky and Zander and Saffia as always, and not to mention the Troubles.
Oh yes, forgotten about them. Forgotten about all them troubles. We don't like to think of troubles. Never mind. Yes. Okay, that's it. Is it?
That's it.
Right. Just to correct a small error earlier, I think there is a Google Plus group that's devoted to hypergrid and stuff, and They were recently trying to kick out spammers, but they did make a point of saying that Kitely is allowed because hypergridding via Kitely is imminent. In other words, they don't allow walled garden grids into the group, but Kitely is an exception because hypergridding is imminent, which I think is interesting. You'll be able to use Kitely to hypergrid around very shortly. Okay, well, I think this is where we get to say it is a wrap. I don't think we've got any other news, so I'd like to thank everybody who's been here. I would like to thank, in her absence now, Pooky Amsterdam. Wonderful to see her, and hope we'll have her back as a guest in the near future. Thank you to Phelan Corrimal.
Thank you. Always wonderful to be on here.
And you, and we will, I hope, see you soon with more news. Thank you again to Zander Greene. Always great to see you, Zander.
Such a pleasure, Mel. Thank you.
And thank you, as always, of course, to Saffia Widdershins, without whom... ...
Thank you very much, Mel.
Okay, and we're going to go back to various clips I've got lined up, including a tiny little preview of Pooky's piece on mosquitoes, which will not be in the replay, so if you want to see it, stay tuned to Week in Review, where we're going to head back. Well, right now, in fact. Thanks, everybody, for watching. The replay of Inworld Review is on YouTube. The replay for the full show is at live stream, or will be at live stream when it finishes, of course. And indeed on my blog at malbonesannex.blogspot.com. One thing. If you are on Google, and haven't activated your Google Plus yet, please do, because then you can join the Metaverse Week in Review community, which is where we'll be having live camera hangouts in the near future to go alongside these avatar presentations, so to speak. And I don't know whether we have the links handy anywhere. I don't, but we do have a community for the birthday on both Facebook and on Google Plus. I'm sure a little search for SLB community or SLB 10 community. I think there's a slight variation on those. We'll find them alongside the Twitter feed, of course, with a similar name. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye from myself and everybody here. I'm going to tell Pet Love she can cut the camera, as it were, as we head back into the studio and watch some of the best clips of the week. So bye for now.